Imagine a silent field. The morning light touches the horses' backs like living fabric, golden and soft, casting slow-moving shadows across the dew-dampened grass. They move as a cohesive unit, unhurried, with no apparent urgency, as if an unseen thought binds them with threads invisible to the human eye. Some graze side by side, nearly touching. Others rest with relaxed bodies, a hind leg folded, their weight distributed across 3 points of perfect equilibrium. And then there are those who simply observe, heads held high, ears swiveling like antennae, gathering information from their surroundings. No audible commands, no leader bellowing orders, no visible hierarchy enforcing obedience, merely subtle gestures, almost imperceptible. A gaze held a fraction too long, a step taken in another's direction, a soft exhalation through the nostrils, so faint it's barely audible, yet everything flows. The group moves as a single entity, constantly adjusting, responding to cues that we humans have only just begun to fathom. Have you ever pondered how they intuitively know what to do together? How they decide, without words, without meetings, without debates, who leads and who follows, who remains vigilant while others rest, who safeguards the young when danger looms, who yields space and who claims territory? How do they resolve discord without fracturing the delicate fabric of their coexistence? The answer lies concealed within something that humans, with all our linguistic and social complexity, rarely fully grasp. The social lives of horses are a silent intelligence, built upon profound layers of trust, emotional memory, and instinctive balance. There is no written constitution, no explicit rules. Yet, it functions with a precision that would shame many human societies. Every movement carries meaning. Every gesture communicates intent. Every interaction either reinforces or reconfigures the invisible structure that keeps the group cohesive, functional, and emotionally stable. Today, you will step into this fascinating and often misunderstood universe. We will explore how horses construct their intricate social networks, how they choose companions and forge bonds that endure for years, how they establish leadership without resorting to violence, and how they navigate conflict without annihilating relationships. You will discover that friendship, for a horse, is not a romantic concept, but a survival strategy refined over millions of years. That leadership, within a natural herd, stems from wisdom rather than brute force, and that even conflicts, inevitable in any social group, are resolved through a body language so sophisticated that scientists spend decades attempting to fully decipher it. Prepare yourself to view these magnificent animals in an entirely new light. Because understanding how horses coexist is to understand one of the planet's oldest and most successful forms of social organization. Stay with me until the end. You will uncover something that will forever alter your perception of any group of horses. Most people believe the horse to be a fundamentally solitary creature, perfectly content to graze alone in an isolated field, far from the cacophony and complexity of a group. It is a romanticized image that appears in films, paintings, and stories. The lone horse, free, independent, needing no one. But this is a profoundly distorted depiction, a reflection far more of how some humans wish to live than of how the horse actually exists, biologically and emotionally. The scientific truth is radically different, and grasping this difference is essential for anyone who truly wishes to comprehend these animals. A horse alone is not experiencing serene freedom. It is experiencing constant vulnerability. In the wild, a horse isolated from the herd is a horse in extreme peril. It knows this. Every cell in its body knows this, because for millions of years, isolation has meant death. Predators hunt the solitary, the weak, those separated from the herd. So, when a horse is alone, even in a seemingly secure pasture, its nervous system remains on high alert. It sleeps less, and when it does sleep, it is in short, shallow naps, never allowing the body to fully relax. It eats fearfully, lifting its head every few seconds to scan the environment for threats. It reacts with far greater intensity to sounds and shadows, because there are no other eyes, ears, or noses to confirm or deny danger. It is its own sole alarm system, and this is exhausting. Isolation, for it is not rest, not contemplative peace. It is constant risk. It is chronic stress. It is a violent contradiction to everything your body and mind have been programmed to do. Studies show that horses kept in isolation exhibit elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, develop compulsive behaviors like fence biting or pacing, and have weaker immune systems. The body literally sickens in the absence of equine companionship. Therefore, when we observe a group of horses in harmony, grazing together, resting nearby, interacting through subtle touches and glances, we are not merely witnessing casual coexistence. We are observing something far more profound and essential. We are seeing a complete social organism, a living emotional network, woven through subtle gestures, shared memories, and constant communication. Each horse in this group is not just an isolated individual who happened to be near others. It is part of a larger system, where its safety, its emotional well-being, even its physical health depend on the quality of the relationships it builds and maintains. This is not sentimentality. It is biology. It is the way the species evolved to survive in a world rife with threats. And understanding this completely changes how we should care for, train, and coexist with horses. Because ignoring this deep social need is not merely inconvenient for them, it is cruel in a way we do not always perceive. The ancestors of modern horses began forming herds approximately 10 million years ago, on the vast plains that stretched across entire continents. In that primitive and perilous world, where enormous predators hunted in coordinated groups, the survival of a solitary herbivore was virtually impossible. Terrifying wolves, great cats with dagger-like teeth, bears the size of small cars, all lurked in the shadows of forests and the undulations of prairies. For an animal without sharp claws, without venomous fangs, without natural armor, the only defense was speed and collective vigilance. And this is how group living transitioned from a convenient option to an absolute biological imperative. Those individuals who preferred to remain alone simply did not survive long enough to pass on their genes. Those who formed strong social bonds, who learned to trust companions, who developed efficient communication systems, these individuals thrived. And over time, something extraordinary occurred. The equine brain evolved to process social information with remarkable complexity. Specific brain regions expanded to recognize faces, interpret expressions, and memorize individuals and their unique characteristics. The nervous system was refined to detect subtle body language cues, enabling instantaneous communication without the need for sounds that could alert predators. The capacity for long-term emotional memories of other individuals developed, allowing bonds of trust to be forged over time. In a cohesive group, a horse could sleep soundly because another was vigilant. It could graze without constant fear because multiple pairs of eyes scanned the horizon. If one alerted to danger, all would flee as a single entity, synchronized, each trusting the instincts of the others. This group intelligence was not merely advantageous, it was the demarcation between extinction and the species, perpetuation. Modern science terms this collective intelligence a system of nonverbal cooperation that exponentially enhances the survival prospects of each group member. And recent research has begun to reveal that this social intelligence is far more sophisticated than previously imagined. Studies conducted by the University of Bristol, a preeminent global institution in equine behavior research, have demonstrated that horses maintain stable friendships for years, sometimes for their entire lives. They recognize specific companions by each individual's unique scent, by the particular timbre of their whinny, and even by facial micro-expressions, subtle shifts in the eyes, ears, and mouth that convey emotional states. When two horses who were friends reunite after years apart, they recognize each other instantly. The reactions are unequivocal, whinnies of recognition, rapid approach, nasal touching, clear indications of pleasure and excitement. Their social memory is profound and enduring. And these friendships are not superficial or merely circumstantial. They carry measurable and significant biological consequences. Research indicates that horses with stable friends exhibit markedly lower levels of cortisol, the chronic stress hormone. Their immune systems function more effectively, rendering them more resilient to disease. Their resting heart rates are lower and more stable. They display fewer anxious or stressed behaviors, and, surprisingly, they live longer. The quality of social relationships literally prolongs life. In the herd, friendship isn't an emotional luxury or an abstract concept. It's concrete emotional survival. It's the difference between a perpetually stressed nervous system and a body that can relax, regenerate, thrive. And within this intricate web of relationships, each horse intuitively knows precisely what to do to keep the group's delicate equilibrium functioning. This knowledge isn't taught. It's instinctive, genetically encoded through countless generations. In a natural group of horses living freely, there is clear order, but not tyranny. There is structure, but not rigidity. There is leadership, but not domination through brute force. And grasping these subtle distinctions is fundamental to understanding how equine society truly operates. The one who guides the group, who makes the pivotal decisions about when to move, where to go, when to stop for rest, is typically a mature mare. not necessarily the youngest or physically strongest, but the one with the most accumulated experience. Scientists call her the lead mare or alpha mare, but these terms can be misleading if we think of leadership the way we humans often conceive of it. She does not rule through intimidation. She doesn't force others to follow. She doesn't need to. Her authority stems from something far more profound and respected: experience, accumulated knowledge, and a demonstrated capacity to make decisions that keep the group safe and healthy. She is the quiet center of the herd's balance. She knows the best routes to clean water and lush pasture. She senses subtle environmental shifts that signal danger before others do. She anticipates how the group will react to different situations and adjusts her decisions accordingly. When she moves, the others follow not out of fear, but out of trust built over countless interactions. She has proven, time and again, that her choices lead to the group's safety and well-being. And this creates a far more stable and functional form of authority than any hierarchy based on strength or aggression. The dominant male, often called the stallion, plays a completely different yet equally essential role. He protects. He frequently positions himself on the fringes of the group, in the most vulnerable spots, alert to approaching predators or strange horses that might pose a threat. It is prepared to ward off intruders, to rally dispersed members of the group, to interpose its body between danger and the most vulnerable. But, and this is crucial, within the herd, it also yields space. It respects the leadership of the experienced mare. It does not attempt to control every movement of every member. True power among horses is reciprocal, fluid, and context-dependent. No single individual commands all the time in every situation. All participate in the complex harmony. In moments of imminent danger, the stallion may take the lead, using his strength to defend. In decisions regarding routes and resources, the experienced mare guides. In everyday social interactions, horses of differing social strata engage with mutual respect, acknowledging each individual's unique contributions. This flexibility, this capacity for shared leadership grounded in contextual competence, is one of the reasons equine groups are so stable and functional. There is no absolute dictator fostering constant resentment and tension. Instead, there is a network of relationships wherein each individual possesses value, function, and respect. Ethologists, scientists who study animal behavior in natural settings, have a specific term for the intense friendships that form between horses. They call them preferential associations. What makes these dyads or small groups so captivating is that they arise from genuine choice, not from external imposition or immediate necessity. These are horses that actively choose to spend time together, seeking proximity even when ample space is available. They graze side by side, often synchronizing even their chewing rhythm. They rest together, positioning themselves so they can touch gently or remain within inches of each other. They groom each other frequently, a mutual activity where one nips gently at the other's neck or back, reaching areas the companion cannot access independently. This behavior is not merely practical, it is profoundly social and emotionally significant. Researchers observing these behaviors over extended periods have noted fascinating patterns. These pairs even synchronize their breathing when in close proximity and relaxed. They inhale and exhale in a coordinated cadence, creating a form of physiological resonance that likely has mutually calming effects. And these friendships do not form randomly. There is selection based on affinity. Researchers have observed that horses with similar temperaments spontaneously gravitate towards one another. Calm horses are drawn to other calm individuals, finding a compatible energy that avoids unnecessary stress. Inquisitive and playful horses form bonds with kindred spirits, engaging in games and explorations that more stoic equines would eschew. Anxious horses often associate, perhaps finding solace in company that comprehends their heightened vigilance. It is not anthropomorphism to posit that distinct personalities exist among horses. Research extensively corroborates this, and these personalities seek social compatibility. Consequently, when one of these companions departs, whether through relocation, sale, or even death, the other experiences profound distress. This is not hyperbole, it is documented scientific observation. Separating equine friends results in a measurable increase in cortisol levels, the hormone linked to chronic stress. The horse left behind frequently exhibits signs of grief, increased vocalizations, calling for the absent companion, reduced appetite, restless pacing, as if searching for the lost friend, and diminished social interaction with other herd members. It is as if the horse's body communicates, through biological and behavioral markers, that a part of its emotional security has been lost, a cornerstone of its support network dismantled. This is not a romantic interpretation, but a physiological and emotional reality, and it should profoundly inform how we interact with horses in our lives, how we make decisions about separating them, and how we facilitate new bonds when change is inevitable. Even within balanced and harmonious social groups, conflicts invariably arise. Resources are finite. The optimal shady spot on a sweltering day, the most succulent patch of grass, a position near a preferred companion. Personalities clash. A more dominant horse encounters another that is not readily submissive. A young stallion tests boundaries, exploring his place within the social hierarchy. A mare shields her foal from perceived threats. Conflicts are an intrinsic facet of any complex society. Yet, contrary to what human expectations might suggest, these disputes are rarely violent, seldom result in serious injury, and infrequently cause permanent damage to the group's social fabric. The reason for this is extraordinary. Horses have developed a communication system so refined, so replete with nuance, that the majority of conflicts can be resolved through graduated signals long before they escalate to direct physical confrontation. When a horse wishes to assert personal space, when it wants to convey that another is encroaching upon its territory or threatening its access to a resource, it does not immediately attack. It issues a warning, and it does so through a graded sequence of signals that afford the other party multiple opportunities to withdraw peacefully. Initially, it might simply fix its gaze intently in the other's direction, maintaining direct eye contact. For horses, being prey animals generally averse to direct confrontation, this sustained stare already communicates serious intent. Should the other not respond, the next step might involve ear movement. The ears, normally mobile and relaxed, pivot backward, pressed flat against the head. This is a universal signal among horses indicating displeasure or a warning. It is not yet aggression. It is clear communication. I am uncomfortable. You need to reconsider your action. If this still proves insufficient, the tail may begin to swish, not the gentle flick to ward off flies, but a firm, deliberate, vigorous lashing. The neck arcs, creating a larger, more intimidating silhouette. The head may lower slightly, then make a sharp, jabbing motion in the direction of the other horse, simulating the onset of a bite, but without actual contact. And in the vast majority of instances, at some point along this graduated escalation of signals, the other horse comprehends and acquiesces. It retreats a few steps. It averts its gaze. It lowers its head in a gesture of temporary submission, and the conflict is resolved. No bites, no kicks, no injuries, no wasted energy, no psychological trauma that would shatter group cohesion. This communication system is so sophisticated, so imbued with subtle variations in intensity and meaning, that scientists who study it liken it to a veritable body language grammar. Each movement possesses syntax, context, and meaning that shifts based on position, timing, and the relational history between the individuals involved. The horse's strength, its true mettle as a species, lies not in its capacity for combat. It resides in its capacity for restraint, for communicating clearly before violence becomes imperative, for resolving disputes through signals that all comprehend, thereby preserving the integrity of the group, even when individual interests collide. Through millions of years of evolution, they have selected cooperation as their primary life strategy. Cooperative groups, where conflicts are managed without destructive violence, survive better than groups perpetually torn apart by internal strife. And perhaps this is precisely why, when humans finally learn to communicate with horses in that subtle, respectful body language, the bond feels almost spiritual, because the horse demands of humans that which humans, in their chaotic and often violent social lives, have most forgotten: absolute coherence between internal intention and external gesture, bodily honesty, clear communication devoid of ambiguity or manipulation. Recent studies in neuroscience and animal behavior are confirming what experienced breeders and indigenous peoples who lived in close proximity to horses have always intuitively known. Horses sense each other's emotions with astonishing precision and immediacy, and more surprisingly, they sense and respond to our human emotions with the same sensitivity. It's not telepathy. It's not magic. It's sophisticated biology. When one horse in a group becomes frightened, when its nervous system detects danger and triggers the flight response, something remarkable occurs. The other horses, even those who neither saw nor heard the stimulus that caused the initial fright, react almost instantaneously. Their heads lift, their bodies tense, their heart rates increase. They orient themselves in the same direction as the frightened horse, ready to flee. This is not conscious imitation. It is a phenomenon scientists refer to as emotional contagion. a deeply ingrained collective reflex that keeps the group cohesive and synchronized in response to threats, but it functions equally in the opposite direction. When a horse that was frightened calms down, when its breathing slows, when its muscles relax, the others also begin to relax. Calmness spreads through the group like ripples on the surface of a lake after a stone has been dropped. And this has obvious survival value. If one member of the group perceives danger, all must react swiftly. But equally importantly, if the danger passes or proves to be a false alarm, the group must quickly return to a state of calm to conserve energy and continue grazing, resting, living. This phenomenon of emotional contagion is not unique to horses. It is also observed in other social animals. In human mothers and infants, for instance, the mother's calm regulates and soothes the baby's still immature nervous system. But in horses, the sensitivity and speed of this mechanism are particularly refined due to the unique evolutionary pressures they've faced as prey animals living in open herds. And equine empathy isn't just abstract emotion, it has a concrete neurological basis. Research in equine neuroscience, a relatively new but rapidly expanding field, demonstrates that horses possess highly developed specific brain regions dedicated to processing facial expressions from other horses and even humans. They can decipher intent through subtle shifts in our faces, our eyes, the configuration of our mouths. They can anticipate movement through minimal muscle tensions that precede action, cues so subtle that we ourselves are often unaware we are emitting them. This neural processing occurs at extraordinary speed. A horse can read your facial expression and adjust its own behavior in fractions of a second. And because they evolved in environments where accurate reading of others meant survival, they have become masters of this skill. Therefore, the most effective way to establish true leadership with a horse, to forge the kind of connection that results in voluntary partnership rather than forced obedience, is not to display physical strength or aggressive dominance. It is to convey authentic tranquility, not feigned or superficial calm. Horses detect emotional incongruence instantaneously. If you are attempting to appear calm while your heart pounds with anxiety, they feel the discrepancy and trust what their body tells them, not what your posture attempts to communicate. They do not respond to dominance in the way many traditional training methods have assumed. They respond to coherent energy, to genuine presence, to honest communication between what you feel internally and what your body expresses externally. And when you are able to offer that, when your own calm is real and profound, something extraordinary occurs. The horse relaxes in your presence much as it would relax in the presence of a trusted herdmate. And perhaps most impressively of all, revealed in recent research measuring heart rate variability during interspecies interactions, is that this empathy is not limited to their own kind. When you approach a horse with genuine respect, clear intention, and calm energy, something remarkable occurs on a physiological level. It literally begins to match its heart rate to yours. This is not coincidence. It is not imagination. It is measurable synchronization, documented through simultaneous heart monitors on human and equine. Two hearts, two species separated by millions of years of divergent evolution, finding a common frequency, beating in a temporary yet real harmony. This is empathy in its purest, most biologically verifiable form. It is proof that the connection between humans and horses is not merely cultural or trained, but rooted in shared neurobiological capacities. When we treat horses with the awareness of this profound sensitivity, everything shifts. Training becomes dialogue, coexistence becomes partnership, and the horse reveals capabilities that remain hidden under methods predicated on force and domination. Now, close your eyes with me for a moment and picture that field we described at the outset. But this time, with all that you've learned, see it with new eyes. Eyes informed by science and deep understanding. The horses move together, as if dancing to a music only they can hear, a symphony composed of microscopic visual cues, shifts in the air, energy synchronization. No sound of discord breaks the harmony. No unnecessary haste shatters the natural rhythm. Just balance, just flow, just the visible expression of millions of years of evolutionary refinement at work. Their lives are made of codes invisible to our hurried, language-addicted eyes, gazes held for specific durations, unique scents carrying identity and history, gentle touches reinforcing bonds and communicating presence, silence that speaks volumes when one knows how to interpret it. And in this ancient language, far older than any human tongue, they teach us something that we, in our complex and often fragmented society, have forgotten or chosen to ignore. Coexisting is more important than conquering. Keeping the group cohesive and functional is worth more than dominating every interaction. The ability to resolve conflict without destroying relationships is more valuable than the capacity to win fights. They do not measure strength primarily to dominate others. Though hierarchies exist and are functional, they measure strength to protect the group, to ensure the safety and peace of all, not solely the strongest. Friendship, for a horse, is not sentimentalism. It is a pact. It is a mutual commitment of vigilance, care, and presence, and respect. Genuine respect is the sole path back to harmony when that pact is temporarily fractured by conflict or misunderstanding. There are no shortcuts. There are no dominance tricks that substitute for the patient construction of trust through repeated honest interactions over time. Thus, when you observe two horses nuzzling, that gentle gesture where nostrils meet and air is exchanged, know that you are witnessing more than a simple act of instinctive affection. You are seeing a ritual of recognition. You are seeing a confirmation of identity and of bond. You are seeing the living architecture of trust being maintained and reinforced. When you see horses standing shoulder to shoulder, remaining thus for extended minutes, seemingly doing nothing, you are witnessing profound communication, mutual emotional regulation, shared comfort, the physical expression of security that only exists in the presence of someone you know, someone you trust, someone you have chosen as part of your support network. These are not trivial or automatic actions. They are sophisticated social choices made by animals with emotional and cognitive capacities that we are only beginning to fully comprehend. Share in the comments. Have you ever witnessed horses forming unlikely friendships, overcoming obvious differences in age, size, or temperament to forge deep bonds? Have you ever observed two horses reconciling after a conflict, cautiously approaching one another until they restored touch and proximity? Tell your story. Describe what you saw, what you felt observing, what it taught you about these extraordinary animals. Your narrative may inspire fellow horse lovers, may open the eyes of someone who still views these animals as mere tools for work or entertainment. It may be precisely what someone else needs to read, to finally grasp that the horse in their life is not merely a domesticated animal, but a complex social being with profound emotional needs that cannot be ignored without real consequences for their well-being. Each shared story weaves a larger tapestry of collective understanding. In this era where so many horses live in isolation within individual stalls, separated from equine companionship for human convenience, these stories serve as urgent reminders that we are denying something essential to their nature when we deny social connection. And if this perspective has resonated with you in some way, if it has illuminated something you intuitively felt but had never seen clearly articulated, subscribe to this channel to continue this journey of discovery, because there is so much more to learn about the equine world, about how horses communicate through subtle vocalizations that our human hearing can barely distinguish, about how mares teach their foals not only physical skills, but also complex social navigation, about how older horses function as living libraries of knowledge for younger groups, transmitting through example where to find water during droughts, how to recognize poisonous plants, how to read the behavior of other animals in their shared environment. Science is constantly revealing new layers of sophistication in the social and cognitive lives of horses, and the more we learn, the deeper our respect becomes, and the more humbled we are by the complexity that exists in these beings we have domesticated for millennia, yet still scarcely comprehend. Because to truly understand horses, not through romantic projections or anthropomorphic assumptions, but through the lens of rigorous behavioral science and patient observation, is to relearn the most ancient language on earth. The language of empathy that requires no words, of communication that occurs through presence, synchronized breathing, shared energy. It is to remember that before we had complex grammar and abstract philosophy, before we built cities and created technology, we too lived in small groups where survival depended on correctly reading each other's subtle cues, where conflicts were resolved through gestures and postures because excessive violence weakened the entire group, where friendship was not an emotional luxury but a practical necessity to have someone watching while you slept. Horses have kept alive this ancient form of social existence, and when we learn from them, when we allow them to teach us their refined wisdom honed over ages, we too reconnect with something essential in our own social nature that modernity often obscures or denies. This is the true gift of understanding the social lives of horses. Not only do we become better with them, we become more complete social beings ourselves.